thing that I always tell people is, and it's easier said than done, I recognize, which is figure out what you're amazing at, figure out what you love. That's your lane. Do only that. Stay in your lane. And as entrepreneurs, a lot of times we're like, yeah, but I have to do all the things, right? Because if I don't, then who will? No one's going to do it the way I do. And that's true.
Hey there, I am Dr. Jason Ballara, and this is the Know Your Why podcast, where we explore the why behind success. Every week, I meet with real estate investors, veterinary entrepreneurs, mindset coaches, authors, and fitness professionals to uncover their why and how it drives them on the winding road to success. What is your why? Hi everyone, I'm Jason Ballara, and this is the Know Your Why podcast. Today I'm here with Bethany LaFlamme. Bethany is an entrepreneur, a seasoned deal lawyer, a mother, and a visionary, which all really cool titles. I love the visionary aspect of this. Bethany, I'll stop there on the intro because I want to say thank you. Thank you for coming on the show, taking the time out to be here today.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Can we just start with, let's have you tell your background, tell the listener kind of a bit about yourself, and then we'll just dive in from there.
Yeah, absolutely. I grew up in a working class family back in Ohio. And as a smart young person, I was told that the way to get out of my current situation was to go to law school or medical school. So I thought for years and years I was going to be a doctor because I thought those were the two options, right? And I started college and realized that was not for me. So the next option was then to go to law school, I guess. So growing up, I didn't realize that entrepreneurship or investing or any of that was a thing that I could have. So I set my sights on law school and I moved out to California and really never looked back once I moved to California. And as actually after I graduated from law school, I did the things that you're supposed to do, right? I went and I got a job at a big downtown LA law firm and I worked myself almost to death and did my 2,000 hours of billables a year, commuting 3 hours back and forth to an office in LA and all the things, right? And as I was doing that, I realized I didn't work this hard for this. This can't be it, right? And it's funny, my partner Mauricio and I have a very similar sort of breaking point where we looked at the partners at our law firms and we were like, that's the goal. The goal is to be here every night and every weekend and, barely see your family and, barely see your kids and all of those things. And I realized this is not what I wanted to do. Now, I still didn't quite yet know exactly what I wanted to do, but I knew it wasn't that. So I set up my own law firm. And I was like, all right, I'm going to be an entrepreneur, but still a lawyer. Right. And I did that for a while and it was fine. I liked it fine. But eventually I was like, I really still want to do some more entrepreneurial stuff. So I shifted gears a couple of times and I merged my firm into a mid-market firm based out of Chicago, ran their corporate practice for a while. And I was doing mergers and acquisitions. I was working with venture. I was doing, startup. So I was still doing SEC law, but it wasn't in real estate at all. Actually, it was really on the operating company side, oil and gas, tech, medical devices, those kinds of things, and the M&A, which was again fine, but I was kind of treated like I was the help still, and it was still not that fulfilling. Like I wanted to really get in there and partner. I was still on the sidelines. I wasn't really building things. I was helping other people build things. And I decided to leave the practice of law and start a fund. And I failed miserably. It was terrible. It was terrible. It was this like brilliant, complicated model, so brilliant and complicated that no investors understood it. And of course, what happens when people are confused? They say no.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, now what do I do? Right. This fund failed miserably. And around that time I met Mauricio Raoul, my current law partner, and he was looking for someone to help him run his growing practice and really wanted to not be working himself to death. And I said, all right, I'll tell you what, I'll help you for a little while where I sort of lick my wounds, figure out what's next, but I don't want to go back into the practice of law. I definitely don't want to, I don't want to do this full time anymore. I just got to figure out what I'm going to do. So I started doing some work with him and I started meeting his clients, and I had never done real estate before. I had done securities law. So, okay, that's the harder part, right? And I realized when the first deal I ever did, I was like, wait, cash flow? What? What? There's cash flow? Wait a minute, where have you been all my life? And I was really excited about it. But then I met the clients and I was like, well, these people I want to work with. I want to help these people build something. These people don't treat me like I'm the help. They want my guidance on how to build something really cool and get away from their 9 to 5 and all the things. And then I started remembering back when I had read Rich Dad Poor Dad years and years and years prior, like back in 2000 or something. And I was like, oh yeah, I kind of put that on the back burner. I read it. I read it. I understood it. And I still did the thing of, when I've established myself, then I'll do those things.
Yeah.
Right. So I fast forward, a little while later, and Mauricio was like, how about you help me run this firm? And I was like, actually, yeah, I think maybe I will. So that kind of got me to where I am today. And now I'm the managing partner of Premier Law Group, and Mauricio and I are partners, and I love it now. I thought I wanted to leave the practice of law altogether, and now I'm like, oh no, I like these people. This is fun.
Yeah, it's fascinating the sort of perspective you can get within even a specific career path, right? Like even you mentioned being a doctor, being any of these things that are, people look at that field as, I mean, and I didn't, like, honestly, until I got into real estate, didn't understand the depth of what being a lawyer meant too, like all the different specialties you could have there. Like I understand it on the medical side because I am a specialist. Like but it's like I didn't realize you could sort of find your own niche. I also didn't realize like necessarily what even a partnership meant in a lot of ways, like how many different ways there are to partner with people, how many different ways there are to do businesses and things like that. It's fascinating to kind of discover that world, and find where you can fit in it.
Excuse me. It is. And it's once you kind of figure that out, I mean, the thing that I always tell people is, and it's easier said than done, I recognize, which is figure out what you're amazing at, figure out what you love. That's your lane. Do only that. Stay in your lane. And as entrepreneurs, a lot of times we're like, yeah, but I have to do all the things, right? Because if I don't, then who will? No one's going to do it the way I do. And that's true. No one will do it the way you will. However, I had a coach really early on in my legal career. And what she said to me, this might have been the best piece of advice she ever gave me. And I frankly don't even really remember that much else that she told me except this piece of advice, which is sometimes good enough is good enough.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, wait, what? And she said, if it's a
Yeah.
$15 an hour job, then let a $15 an hour person do it. You don't, it's a letter. You don't have to, it doesn't have to be you. Right. And
Right.
so if you can start to peel your fingers off, and then for the rest, there's other people, OPE.
Yeah. It's a simple concept, but not always so easy to kind of implement in the sense that I mean, at least the way I look at it is like that a lot of people talk about that, right? Like let someone else do the lower value jobs. I think sometimes in the beginning, like I've struggled with, well, where do I fall in that? What is my like value job, right? Like where, like, am I a $15 an hour? Am I 100? Like whatever it is, like whatever the number is. And it's like, you, I think sometimes just figuring out, as you said, like, what are you amazing at and focusing on that, like even more so much than how much the per hour. It's just, if you're spending time doing what you're good at, then that's going to, sort of create success, and then bring in the people around you to help support that function. I think is like a very, I don't know, smart path to go.
Yeah, and even more than that, even further than that is not only just what you're good at and amazing at, but what really lights you up. Like, what do you love to do? What is the thing, like, I'm gonna hop out of bed this morning because I get to do this thing.
Yeah.
Because there are a few things that I've learned to be good at that I don't really want to do.
Yeah.
Right? I could do it. I'm good at it, but I'm just like, if I could find someone else who could do this well enough, then for sure I want to hand that off. That's the harder part, I think, because as entrepreneurs, we can learn almost anything, anybody. I mean, you can learn almost anything and get kind of good at least proficient at it, right? But you're going to be really amazing at the things that you really love to do that light you up. And that's the thing I think that it was my biggest challenge, and it's still a work in progress. I mean, I meet with my mindset strategist probably twice a week, and she keeps kind of diverting me back to my lane. Like, is that something you should be spending your time on? Does it get you to your big vision, your BHAG, or whatever it is you want to call it? Is this the thing that really that your why pushes you towards, right? And I think that's the biggest challenge is knowing exactly what we want. I mean, one of the things that I told her early on is, I figured out once I know what I want, I always get it eventually. It's just the knowing what I want. You confuse the process if you don't really decide and define what it is you want exactly. And so I think that's really the hardest part as entrepreneurs is knowing really what is it that I want.
Yeah. And I love that concept of like, if you know what it is, you'll get it, because I think that's true. And it's maybe harder to figure out what that is, the what you want, even harder than the how, right? Like the
Yeah.
what might be harder than the how, because once you figure it out, then you're like, okay, I can find, people to help me get there. I can reverse engineer the path to whatever that thing is.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I think everyone by now, if you haven't already, do read Who Not How, right? And but you can't do that until you know the what. You're right. That's the key, is knowing exactly what. And then there's always somebody that can help you, other people to help you get
Yeah.
there.
So, and that is your philosophy, right? The OPE. We talk about that a little bit, kind of explain to people what you mean, how you implement it, kind of what's behind that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mentioned the famous Purple Book, the Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad Poor Dad, and that was the first time I had ever heard of the concept of OPM, other people's money. I know it's been around for a long time. I actually started researching it for the book I'm writing, and it's a concept that's been around for a really long time. But as I was looking at it, I started thinking, especially as a securities lawyer, I started thinking that's not quite enough. It's not quite going to get you there. And I really believe that once you figure out what you're amazing at, what you love, what lights you up, and that's your lane, that if you can stay in that lane, the only way to do that is to allow other people to do literally everything else. So OPE is other people's everything. Money is one of those things. Yes, of course. But there's other people's expertise, other people's technology, other people's networks. I mean, literally everything. So it's a real discipline, and something that we have to practice, just like going to the gym or any other kind of habit that we have to keep practicing to force ourselves to stay in our lanes, and then allow OPE, other people's everything, to help us with all the rest of it. And the cool thing about that, and I can say this with a large degree of confidence as a securities lawyer, is not only is that the thing that feels good to do, is to let other people do the garbage that you don't want to do, it's actually the safest thing to do from a legal perspective. If you think about it, you are doing things that you're an expert at. You're doing things that you're amazing at. You are going to be safer in your business if you have other people that are experts doing their thing. So that whole, could I figure out how to change my oil? Yeah, I probably could. I do run the risk of letting the car fall on me because I don't really exactly know. I don't do it all the time. I'm not an expert at it. You know, I there's somebody who can do that is an expert at it. So why would I spend my time figuring out how to do that when I can, be amazing at something else, and it's safer for me to allow someone else to do that. Same is true in your business. Could someone else figure out how to do their own securities compliance? Yeah, there's the internet. You could do that. Do you really want to risk Do you want to risk your future of your business and your family and whatever else to just try to figure it out and wing it? No, there are experts for that. So that's, OPM, and OPM is also a really big responsibility for people. So to do that, you better have other people around you who know exactly what's going on in all the different areas. So that's really where that was born. And I started writing it out, and then I realized like there's just like a whole book here. So
Yeah.
I'm almost done with that book. It'll come
Yeah.
out next year.
Well, awesome. That'll be something for us all to look forward to. But it is, I guess it, you mentioned Who Not How, and Who Not How has been like a game changer for me. Just that concept of it's, I think as entrepreneurs, it's easy to also be kind of in that DIY mindset. And so it truly is like a philosophy shift in, if you're looking at OPE and really looking at these goals that you're trying to accomplish as more about like, what is the team I have to put in place? Who do I have to connect with? Who's got all the pieces I need to bring in here and to make it happen? And it's, I think that's a skill in and of itself. And I find that, that's, for me, I feel like we always list out, when we talk about like syndications, there's like the jobs, right? Like there's acquisition and capital raising and asset management, underwriting, legal compliance, like there. But I think like one of the really important jobs is that, sort of orchestrator, right? The gatherer of OPE, right? It's
Yeah.
someone who has to put that all together. And so I think it is a skill that truly needs to be developed to be like successful on large scale.
It is, and I have found that that's one of my biggest challenges actually, because that's actually not my lane necessarily is the finding the OPE. And so, just like any other huge task, what I decided was I have to get really good at finding one amazing OPE who is good at finding the rest.
Mm.
Right. Usually, so you in my bio mentioned visionary, and when I say visionary, I really am thinking about it from like an EOS rocket fuel perspective, the visionary and the integrator. So if anybody out there has read Rocket Fuel or what's the other one? He's written several, but it's
Traction.
EOS Traction. That's the one.
Yeah.
I always forget that one. Rocket Fuel to me was an easier read. Traction's a bit heavy.
Traction is very, very tactical. Of like it's like a textbook.
It is. It is. So visionaries, that's harder for visionaries for
Yeah.
visionaries to get through,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So and I mean in an EOS, the entrepreneurial operating system way. The most important thing for a visionary, I think, is to find their integrator. Hopefully the integrator can help them fill in the gaps with all the other OPs. So you just have to get really good at finding at least one person who really understands and buys into your vision, which is that's a big thing to ask, right? But that is the one area where you've really got to get good at it, even if you don't love it. That's one exception, I think, to the rule, is because otherwise, how are you going to fill in all those other people? And it's been one of my biggest challenges, right?
Yeah. Well, it's hard to find. I mean, that's like, it's easy to say, right? Oh, I just need to find someone who buys into my vision and then can put all the pieces in place, right? Like,
Yeah.
like it's just simple, just do that. But that's, I mean, that's a hugely important role in like both sides, right? The visionary and the integrator. They're both hugely important. And if you have someone who is strictly an integrator and not, not really visionary, like they're also going to struggle to do it on their own. And that, like, combining those two superpowers together, like that's where, that, I guess that's why it's called rocket fuel, right? Because that's
Right.
where you get, to really exponentially grow in whatever you're trying to do, right? It's like putting those two pieces together.
Oh yeah, I mean, and you're unstoppable. I mean, I think it's as important as I think finding the perfect spouse, really, for your business, because you're unstoppable if you have those two pieces that are fully in their gifts, right, and
Yeah.
talents. they're fully living in their why, they're fully, doing all the things that they love and are amazing at, because they're almost mutually exclusive.
Mm.
uh you know for a while a visionary can do integrator stuff, and for a while an integrator can do visionary stuff, but it's not sustainable to fully do both. It's just too much for any single person. So that's actually, I think, probably the most important thing, is to find that other person, whichever one you are.
Yeah.
I think probably most of the people that we run across running syndication businesses are going to be in that visionary category.
Hmm. Yeah. And and it's, you said that you can do, whether you're one or the other, you might be able to do both to a point. And it's funny, that really resonated with me, because I was like, I don't think I would have known. I don't know that I would have known there were those two categories of people. Didn't know on which one I was until I mainly realized I wasn't really an integrator. Like, it was just kind of like, hey, I can't do all of these things. Like, I have the ideas, but I need to bring in people to make them happen, and as you say, like, the person to align those pieces and put it all together. So it's yeah, it's I guess part of the evolution of, business and entrepreneurship, is kind of figuring out which of those two lanes you fit in, and then finding the other, and connecting.
Yeah, exactly. Which is why I think that, our any business is really so much of a mindset game. And I never would have thought that before. I mean, it's funny because people laugh at me like, you're a lawyer and you talk about mindset. That's weird, right?
Yeah.
And it is a little bit weird, I guess. But I mean, the things that I figured out in my many, many years now of practicing and running a business and all the things, is that I have a passion for helping people create conscious wealth. And so I started kind of digging into, like, what does that even really mean? And there really only are three elements to creating conscious wealth. Education, obviously, we all need to educate ourselves. Access to opportunities to create wealth, you need to know where to find those opportunities. But the third is mindset.
Mhm.
And if you have the right mindset, you'll figure out that you have all the access to the education and all the access to opportunities that you need. It might not be the same access as everybody else, but if you have the right mindset, you can get past that too. And so I think once we get the right mindset, we can accomplish anything we want, because you have the right mindset to go find those other people. You have the right mindset to stay in the lane that you're supposed to be in. You have the right mindset to do, but if you don't have the right mindset, it doesn't matter how much education you have or how much access to opportunity you have or how many people around you are amazing. If you don't have the right mindset, it's you might find some success, but you're not going to find what I call conscious wealth, right? Because in order for it to be conscious wealth, it's almost like you can't commit murder without intent, right? Conscious wealth, you have to intend it. It has to be on
Yeah.
purpose and intentional.
Yeah.
And I think the mindset is the most important key to that for sure.
Yeah. Completely agree. And I think that the interesting, so at this day and age, like, it's really hard to say you don't have access to the knowledge or the opportunities. Like, to say that anybody doesn't have that, like, I'm sure there are people, but, like, the more the more there is the internet, the more there is social media, the more there is, digital resources, the more you're going to be able to find them. So it is really the mindset that is going to separate the people that put it to use versus the people that don't, because it's there, it's accessible.
It is. It is. And there are so many free resources even.
Yeah.
So even if you don't already have money, I don't think it necessarily is true that it takes money to make money. Um, I think it makes it easier, right?
Yeah.
Having money is a
Yeah.
nice resource to have, and it makes everything easier. I totally recognize that, especially
Yeah.
having grown up without any money.
Yeah.
But you can get past it if you have the right mindset. I mean, I get it. Like, I'm not sitting here saying, everybody has the same access, everybody has the same. I get that I sound a little privileged right now. However, depending on wherever your starting point is, you can still get there. It just might be harder, but you got to get over it. You
Right.
just have to.
Yeah.
Not
And
always gonna
yeah,
be fair.
and that is a good point. I mean, it's true, like, maybe not everybody has it. I think the point being, all else being equal, it's what you do, using mindset to use to take that information, that opportunity, and actually make something of it is really kind of what it comes down to. That's where the mindset becomes so important, because it's, I mean, you say that people kind of give you a hard time about being a lawyer and talking mindset, and like, honestly, 4 or 5 years ago, I sort of laughed at people that talked about mindset and all of that, until I kind of realized how important it was. And now I talk about it all the time, and it's kind of like, it takes, I don't have a different access to opportunities. I now just realize they're opportunities, right?
Mhm.
So it's like, there's no, it didn't, so even within myself, like, it's just, and you can develop that mindset just like you can develop skills, in other areas. So I think it's couldn't agree more that it's hugely important. What do you, so, access to opportunities, conscious wealth, what are you doing from a, like, an investing standpoint, outside of your practice? Uh what's your, I guess, philosophy there? What are you doing to grow your business outside of, law?
So outside of that, I am a passive investor. Once I learned that I had been missing that my whole life, I was like,
Yeah.
how do I get into this? And I started small, right? I started, literally, I had a client who allowed some people to come in as low as $5,000. And I was like, all right, this is one of the first deals that I'm working on. I haven't really done this yet. I mean, I had bought my own property before, but I hadn't passively invested in anyone else's. And so I kind of limped in a little bit, and then realized, like, this is amazing. So I am a passive investor. Uh, just recently, I syndicated my own deal, which I never thought I would do before. And so that was one area where I was like, okay, I've done this, I've seen hundreds and hundreds of deals, advised on hundreds of deals on the law side of it. Let's see, right? And I'm so glad I did, because it's freaking hard. It's a lot of
Yeah.
work,
Yeah.
but it's not, right? I mean, it's
Yeah.
hard, but it's figure outable.
Mhm.
Right. And if you have the right team around you, and that was the thing, you have to have your OPs around you. And so I'm so happy that I have that different perspective, because I have so much more empathy for my clients now. Whereas looking at, like, okay, I get it. Raising money can be hard if you don't know, if you don't have the right team around you. So now my approach is, okay, I can give you the technical legal stuff or whatever, but I'm also going to now be from experience advising on, you got to vet your team. You got to make sure you have a person who does this and a person who does that. And so I guess technically I am a syndicator, because I syndicated one deal. Uh,
Not
and
technically, you are.
yeah, that's right. And then the other thing is, I have started doing retreats, which is so fun. I love it. And the whole idea behind the retreats is to help people learn how to create conscious wealth. Right now, the focus is on syndicators and LPs, the passive investors, and to talk about how to create conscious wealth through real estate syndication. And so that's another area where I still get to do the lawyer stuff, right? I'm still giving advice on how to be compliant and practice safe SEC, but then how else can you do that, right? And which is really fun, because I do get to then pull from my experience of my past life, and I know how to advise on, like, mergers and acquisitions, or how do you want to do, if do you want to do organic growth, and so I get to kind of pull in all the things that I've learned over my 23 years practicing in the business space, but I get to do it in really cool locations and with a really small
Right.
group of really cool people. And so that is one way that I figured out that is the lane I really want to be in, is as a strategic advisor on people scaling and how to create conscious wealth.
Sounds amazing. I'm sure that's, I mean, that sort of small group setting, people do it, you do masterminds, or, on Zoom, and what, there's all kinds of virtual versions, but being able to go someplace and, like, be
in the presence, sort of live of people with varying areas of expertise, and sort of bringing it all together, and creating that environment for collaboration, I think it's an amazing idea, and it makes a ton of sense. And I think, can really, really needed, because it's hard to form like a real deep connection, just no matter how many Zoom calls you have. I think at some point you got to be in a room together and hang out.
Yeah, and that's true. There is something about the proximity, right? The actual physical proximity, but also just at a retreat, you're getting a little vulnerable. There actually are some mindset exercises, and then there's the legal side, and there's the business side, and there's all the things, right? But you're in a relaxed environment, and it helps people's guard get lowered a little bit, right? And when you have a meal with somebody and all those things, I just think that we cannot emphasize enough how important that is in creating the real relationships. And I think that's the best way to really scale as well, is to have access to those other people, and to get really close with them and figure out what everybody's goals are, and how they can support each other. And then the same thing is true when one of the things I want to do is matchmaking retreats, where we put passives and active investors together to develop those relationships before anybody's even pitched to.
Yeah.
Right. And you think about that level of relationship. I mean, you'll have an investor for life once you do have an investor. It's a bigger investment, right, of time to develop it, but you'll have really partners for life in your business. So every time you have a deal, you'll be able to go to that small group of people and at least start there to seed it,
Right.
because you've got that trust.
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense. I think it's a great opportunity, kind of, I guess, whichever side you sit on, if you're a syndicator or an LP, like it being able to be, because I think even from the LP's perspective, right, you're going to this retreat, and obviously the syndicators that are there, that's a commitment to be, sort of on a personal level, have that relationship with their investors. So I think it shows collaboration from both sides.
Yeah, and a lot of active investors, I advise people when they say, how do I break into syndication? I think the best way, if you can, and I know not everybody can, but if you can, the best way is to start off as a passive investor.
Mm-hmm.
Get into a deal if you can, learn about what's important to you, learn about the syndicator that you're investing with, go through all the steps as an investor, so that you then have the investor's mindset you have the goals in mind when you go and you're pitching to other people. So, well, this was important to me. I want to make sure I deliver this to my investors as well. I do recognize that not everyone can do that, but if you can, I think that's the best way. And then the next best way is to find someone who's really, really good at, who's done a bunch, and almost intern with them, help them out. Say, I can do this one job, asset management or whatever it is, right? I can do this one job on your deal. I just want to learn from you. And there are plenty of sponsors and really experienced syndicators that would welcome that.
Yeah, I think it just, again, it goes back to what you spoke about with mindset, is these opportunities are accessible in some way, and they're just, maybe the different ways to get involved, but knowing that they exist, and then taking steps, taking action to get there, is just really important. Bethany, I want to switch gears and make sure I get time to ask you the questions I ask every guest. First one being based on the name of the show. I always want to ask everybody, what is your why? What's driving you having further and further success?
So it might seem trite, but it is really my daughter, but not only just, oh, my daughter she's watching everything that I do, right? And I want to do really epic shit, but not so that she's impressed by me. I want to do really epic shit so she just looks at me and she goes, yeah, that's what women do. I want to set the example of, you can achieve this because you've seen me achieve it. Because whenever your brain sees evidence of something, then it knows it can achieve it. And so I just want to be evidence to her that she can do anything she wants.
Yeah. be that example. I think it's just that's it. You know, I don't think it's trite at all. I think that's exactly what I want, you know, with my kids as well, is just like, just look at, just show them, you know, what the possibilities are, right? Then they can do whatever they want with it, but just show them what the possibilities are. Tell me something about yourself that isn't common knowledge, special skill, a hobby, anything that you're comfortable sharing to let listeners know you better.
Let's see. I've been asked this before, and there are some where I'm like, oh, do I want to say that? Because I don't know if I ever want to. So I'll tell you first that I've never actually. When I am stressed out or just trying to kind of work out the kinks, I write stand up that will never see the light of day.
Oh, that's amazing. Why will it never see the light of day?
Oh no. I definitely don't have that thick of a skin. I have a pretty thick skin as a lawyer, but not like stand up level thick skin. But I write out, like, I think things are funny in my head, so I'll write out like a sketch in my head, or I'll, you know, in the shower I'm like thinking it through, whatever, as a way to sort of just get the creative stuff out so that I can either write, you know, I'm, you know, writing the book, or when I'm getting ready to do a talk or whatever, it helps me sort of get creative.
I think it's time to start a YouTube channel. You can have your
My
own
daughter's gonna be
stand up.
mortified. She's
Your
gonna be
own
like, Mama, you're
stand up
not that
YouTube
funny.
channel. Yeah, well, kids never think that, but they that I mean, I think that's great. Everybody, like, have, I don't know if everybody, I assume everybody because I do, but I feel like most people have something like that, like a creative side of themselves that maybe isn't like forward facing, but just something that they do that like relaxes them. Like,
Yeah.
you know, writing comedy. For me, it's music. Like, people have things that they do that are just that, you know, kind of, it allows some of the other stuff to kind of flow out and just let you settle your mind. So that's really cool. I do think you should start a YouTube channel, but that
I think I'm probably a lot funnier in my head than
that's
I am
okay.
out there.
Someone, you know, there's millions and millions of people. Like, other people will, someone else will think it's funny. I think it's just a matter of putting it out there. Um, when, aside from until this YouTube channel starts, when people want to reach out to you in the meantime, what's the best way to get a hold?
On Instagram, it's Bethany_LaFlamme. And I do have a YouTube channel. It's just mostly advice on syndication and scaling your business. And that is also my name, Bethany LaFlamme, on YouTube. And you can always reach out at team@plglp.com.
Put that stuff in the show notes. Final question for you. What piece of advice would you give to someone who is trying to get started as an entrepreneur in real estate, however you want to take it, but just someone, you know, they hear this, they're inspired, and they want to kind of know what next steps they should take?
As quickly as you can, define your lane. As quickly as you can, figure out what it is you're amazing at, figure it out what is. What is it that you absolutely love to do? And start looking for those OPs right away. Do not try to build this all by yourself. You don't have to. There's no badge of honor in suffering and doing it all by yourself. There are people that want to help you, and they want to stay in their lane, and they need somebody that's in yours. So there's no shame in asking for help. And in fact, that is the very, very best way to build an empire.
Yeah. I feel like the people that I've seen be most successful, have the most, you know, sort of growth in the long term, are people that did exactly that. Just let's you know, build that team right from the beginning, look at this on a large scale, and not trying to kind of keep it all small, you know, within themselves. So I think that's phenomenal. Well, Bethany, thank you so much. Thank you for coming on the show, sharing some of your story with us. And I think it's going to inspire a lot of people. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Folks listening, I know you're going to love this episode. Please like, rate, and review so we can get more great guests like Bethany. And we'll have all of her information in the show notes so you can connect. And thank you all for listening.
Hey there, I am Dr. Jason Ballara, and this is the Know Your Why podcast, where we explore the why behind success. Every week, I meet with real estate investors, veterinary entrepreneurs, mindset coaches, authors, and fitness professionals to uncover their why and how it drives them on the winding road to success. What is your why?